Cast in the name of God, ye not guilty.
Hey guys, it's showtime! Today I'm checking out the Big O Moderoid plastic model kit from Good Smile. Now, if you've never seen the Big O or you need a refresher, the Big O was an anime series that ran for 2 seasons in the early 2000s and was about the increasingly abstract adventures of Roger Smith, a negotiator of Paradigm City, who often negotiated using a big megadeus called the Big O. The series stood out for its unique look. It was like a mix between Batman the Animated Series and Giant Robo. And while the first series initially appeared to be a standard evil mech of the week kind of show, the series gradually took on a much more existential, cerebral slant in the second season, focusing on misguided memories, questioning reality, and tomatoes. Lots of tomatoes. I personally always liked it for its visuals, so when I saw that Good Smile was releasing a Moderoid of Roger's famous megadeus, I knew I had to get it. I do understand that these are kits, so the idea is that you're supposed to spruce them up with detailing or repainting, but we're going to judge this one on its untouched base quality. I believe the original price of this was around $60, similar to the Escaflowne Moderoid, so it's not super expensive, but it's also not exactly cheap. But, like the Escaflowne model, this is coming from a series where it's hard to find any merch from the show, so I'll take what I can get. So let's start off by checking out the box and the box art. Now this is a big honker of a box. I mean, it makes sense, it's for the Big O. I like the front of the box art, very massive and imposing. The side, just more Big O on the side here. I believe it's the same on this side. Yep, we got the same thing here. The back shows the classic standard quote, "Cast in the name of God, ye not guilty," which would always play when Roger was about to start up his megadeus. Not too much in terms of feature images here, just some various poses that look kind of cool. Got some standard poses here, a little close-up shot. Now this, for example, looks like they've maybe done a repaint because some of the paint job here looks less plasticky and almost more metallic or chrome-like. So we're probably not going to get something that looks exactly like this, but we can hope. And then of course, this is the thing that made me want to buy this. More so than just the Big O, it has 2 fun little details here. Namely that the top part can open up to reveal the little cockpit area where Roger would usually pilot the Big O. Although I don't know if we're going to see any details because this is really tiny on the actual model. And a tiny car, Roger's tiny car that can fit in one of the feet of the Big O. So let's open this up, shall we? Okay. Got a lot of sprues here. A lot of different pieces. This looks like this particularly orange piece here. Looks like it is the top, like the little head cap, and also his little collar piece. Everything else is pretty much gray. Won't become super clear until we actually start putting these things together, I think. There also is some sort of little battery pack or light. I did look up ahead of time to see if we would need any batteries for this and purchase them ahead of time, so we'll be able to check out any special light fixture that is on this Big O. Here is the instruction manual. Now, one thing I think is a little disappointing, but I'm not super surprised, is that it doesn't seem to come with any weaponry, I guess I would say. All the weapons were on the Big O, but in particular in the show, these large forearms of his could open up to reveal the O Thunder gun that he used at least once or twice in the show. And then also the spiky bits at his hip, which you can kind of see small lines here to indicate, could break away for what was referred to as the Moby Dick anchors. I don't know if they ever called it that in the show specifically, but I know if you look up his weaponry, it's listed, which these little guys would shoot off connected with chains and could act as a projectile and also like a grappling device for the Big O. So I don't think we're going to get any of that this time around. This is kind of more of a standard kit. That would have been nice if we had gotten that as well. But even though this is mostly in Japanese, the visuals should help me be able to figure out how to put this thing together. Now it is a little hard to tell given all the lighting in my living room, but there is a very slight, I wouldn't go so far to say as it looks truly metallic, but there is a bit of a sheen on the larger main pieces that are painted. So it's not just a standard plastic look on this, which is good. But I do still think that to really optimize the look of the Big O once this is done, it would definitely benefit from either a repaint or using something like Rub and Buff or something like that to make it look more like dingy, well-used metal, perhaps. But let's put this together and see how the overall look looks. And here he is, the Big O, completed, in action. Now I gotta say, size-wise, I was pleasantly surprised with this figure. It was noticeably larger than my Escaflowne model, and when compared with my two Figmas of Roger and Dorothy, it makes for a really nice display set altogether, truth be told. When you look at the base paint that comes with these, untouched, you know, before you start doing your little model kit shenanigans, the blue from the Big O is actually a pretty decently, like, it's not actually metallic, but it does have an almost chromy metallic sheen to the paint. So if you were to not do any touch-ups or any repaints or whatever, it wouldn't be the worst thing in the world. What does stand out, however, is this little train front engine piece that's on the Big O that is almost more of a matte finish. It doesn't shine nearly as much as the rest of the figure, so it makes it that much more noticeable how like plasticky this part looks. So this would certainly be something that I would touch up if I was going to go further with this. Even on the torso, the lower part of the body, even the black parts have a bit of a sheen to them as well. Both feet, as you can kind of see here, have little outlets for the car to be parked in. They're kind of, I don't know why they did it this way, they're kind of difficult to open. Oops. Unless you have either a really big fingernail or like a pin or something. There we go. So that opens up like that. And you can kind of see the little car inside. Let's take out the car, hopefully. It's not easy to get out. I wish it was easier. It does technically slide out, but it needs a little coaxing. And I could take the car out. Let's look at the car. See, looking at how large my hands are relative to this car should sell how small this damn thing is. So if you have a very steady hand, you may want to go ahead and try to paint some details on the front of this car to distinguish it a little bit more from the rest of the blackness on this thing. So yeah, when you compare it to how it looks in the image here, they've clearly done some touch-ups in paint and that sort of thing and make it look much better. So you would need to do that to make this car more definitively look like a car, honestly. Same thing goes with Roger Smith's cockpit. Like if you look closely here, it's kind of difficult to make out, but the cockpit is orange with like almost little tiny different color highlights to it to differentiate the pieces. But if I open up the top of the head here, this cockpit is actually the same color practically as the train piece in the front here. It's not orange. So they very clearly repainted it so that it looked a little bit more closer to the version in the show. So you would definitely need to do that here. Very fine lines and details that you would probably need to hand paint to make them pop out more, but they are there. Moving on to the head is actually pretty decently detailed. And again, I didn't do any paint touch-ups here, but you can actually see a distinguishing line of this tear line here from the eye down to the chin. That's just default part of the face. And the nose even has a bit of a darker tone to it than the rest of the face, and keeping this whole metallic sheen throughout, which is nice. I will say when I was constructing this, This part, this ear part here with the bolt and the red element were really annoying to stick on because the little nodule underneath was almost too tight a fit. So I did have a moment where I was afraid I was going to break the head trying to smash these things together, but it eventually worked out. So just keep an eye out for that if you are constructing this. The top part's kind of nice with the little translucent see-through plastic. I'm not sure how you would plus this if you were going to paint over it. Maybe this is a part you wouldn't paint. Same with this element, which is the same. The head also comes with an attachable light switch here. So if I click this, it turns lights on behind the eyes, which is really cool. It uses 3 batteries, which are pretty easy to find on Amazon if you need them. But this does add a welcome little additional something to the model. I'm not sure how long the batteries will last in this device, but yeah, the head is actually maybe one of the cooler elements of this model kit. So in addition to the cool eyes, there's some things that can be modified on this model kit. First of all, of course, like we kind of already saw, you can lift up the neck to reveal the cockpit inside. So that's one of your options. But on top of that, it does come with additional parts. So whenever Big O is in like action mode, basically, these shoulders can lift up. I'll do it carefully. There we go. They can lift up to reveal these holes inside. And so they come with additional parts that are like boosters or whatever. I don't know if these are like rocket launchers or whatever. You see these sets of 3 holes here? You could plug in those to show like extra firepower, I guess, on either side. And the torso here can completely come out to be replaced by this one that's full of like rockets that are about to be fired. This part can come out basically. And what you would normally need to do is remove this train piece at the top, attach it to the other one, and then put it back inside. But you can remove the middle part of the torso that way. So that's kind of neat that they give you that. And then of course, in addition to the 2 default fists that the Big O has here, they also give you these 2 open palmed hands. Even cutting the fingers away from the sprue trees was a little tricky. You see these little white dots that are on each finger? Those are from little leftover sprues. I tried to cut it as close as possible, but you can still see it on the fingers, which isn't great. This is another instance of if you were going to finish the model properly by either repainting it or touching it up or something, it would definitely be a benefit here. In general, the range of motion is pretty good. I mean, it has essentially like almost like a ball and socket joint for the arms. There's clearly limitations how far out you can stretch the arms, but you could still get a decent range of motion with them. Less can be said for the legs, because even though it also has a similar joint in the hip, you just can't, I mean, this is kind of the extent that you can kick the foot up. But to be fair, in the show, the Big O doesn't exactly do a lot of crazy stuff with his legs. He is a bit rigid in how he moves. So this is kind of in line with his actual proportions and movement on the anime. What's also cool is that the pistons in the arms can extend and contract, so that would lead to some cool posing, potentially, that you could do. You know, if he's reeling back to do a punch, or if he's already extended his hand in a punch, and then you would just close that up in your pose. So I like that. I would have preferred, instead of the torso weaponry and whatever was in the shoulders here, I much would have preferred the Big O Thunder weapon that is in the arms, or the Moby Dick anchors that would be in each corner. Which leads me into one thing that I think they shouldn't have done at all in this figure. If you look up close at the hips, notice they have kind of the remnants of the Moby Dick anchors, these little triangles in the corners. And they are actually separate pieces in the model kit for some unknown reason. I do not know why. They could have just done something where there was a line indentation to indicate that's where the Moby Dick anchors are, and just had it still be part of this main hip piece. It's just more pieces to lose. Because in my particular case, this back one is just loose all the time. So unless I maybe glue them in, I'm gonna end up losing one of these pieces at some point. I just know it. So that's the only thing I feel was really like a misstep in this model kit. I'm not sure why someone went to the effort of making those individual tiny pieces on the hips. It's just not necessary in my opinion. But all the other pieces go together fairly well. And the instruction guide here did a pretty decent job of guiding me along, even though most of it was, or all of it was in Japanese. Overall, it's still really a cool figure. I highly recommend it if you're a Big O fan in particular. But even size-wise, you kind of get a lot for the $60 tag, because $60 sounds like a lot. But you're getting a figure that it feels like it's at least like 10 inches tall. And that's not bad, especially if you have any Figmas or other characters or figures to go with this on a display. But there you have it. It's the Big O Moderoid from Good Smile. Again, run you hopefully around 60 bucks, but as of this video, I don't think it's readily available, so it might cost you a little bit more. Still a lot cheaper than one of the Big O models that came out, I think a couple years ago, that was like 300 bucks. Although that wasn't a model kit, that was just straight up a large scale model of the Big O. Now, if you can also find Roger Smith and Dorothy Figmas to complement your set, you'll have something really cool to display. But in any case, I hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you next time.